Hello and good afternoon. Welcome to today's choice event. I'm really excited about the topic today, also about our guest. I assume most of you have been following in the last days and weeks a lot about specifically one part of our title here from the webinar, which is a CSDDD. Feels like a crime story in the last few weeks, and there's a lot of confusion around it. And that's what I am excited about to dive a little bit deeper in today. When we set up the webinar, it was specifically also that we thought maybe we can talk about how this European supply chain law is implemented, which effects are coming this year. And now I think, talk more also about going beyond. So what is actually all about sustainable procurement? Which kind of actions do you have to take already, specifically also in Germany, with the Deutsche Lieferkettengesetz, what changing potentially with the European supply chain law, and what changing in general with sustainable procurement? Like, you have so many sustainability and climate goals to put into actions in the supply chain. And that's what we're gonna talk about today. 1 hour is definitely not enough. But we are really happy to have Yvonne Jamal here today, I think for the 3rd or 4th time in our webinar series. She's one of our advisors, and we are super happy to have her as an expert for sustainability procurement. So I'm gonna invite her soon on stage. But before I do that, I introduce you to that choice event for everyone who hasn't been here yet. So first of all, it's the 69th event we are doing since the last almost 4 years. So it's really great to have such a strong climate community checking in with us in all these events. And what we do in those is that we want to really foster exchange. We want to share best practices, knowledge, learnings all around sustainability, decarbonization, and specifically supply chain transformation, because we see there's the biggest impact. As said, an hour is always very short, and we use that webinar function where I can talk, but you unfortunately cannot all join our stage. Nevertheless, we really invite you to be active and participate. So you have a Q&A function or Frage and Antworten, it depends from where you're joining, which you should see in the bottom or on top. And that you can use the whole time. You can share your own experiences, your opinions, specifically for that topic. Probably there's a lot of knowledge also out there, or your own experiences with it. And we very much invite you to ask questions there as well. You can see them all, you can comment as well. And we're gonna collect all these questions and try to answer a lot of them in the end all together. And to make sure that you all find it, I invite you to just use it right now. So you can type in your name and from where you are joining today. So in my case, that would be, hello, Lara. I'm joining from Berlin, where we are sitting with the climate choice. So I'm excited to see who dares to be the first one using the chat function. And I give you a little time to find where it is. So hi, Martin, joining from Düsseldorf. Welcome. Alice, joining from Karlsruhe. Very good to have you. Andrea from Braunschweig. And now you know where to find it. Make use of it. Use it to comment and find out who's joining as well, and try to stay connected. And the second option, how you can do that after the webinar, is by joining our Slack. So we have invited you when you signed up to the webinar. You can join that Slack community to stay up to date. We always send our choice event invites there. We also share some knowledge around climate events or insights. Also a lot of job posting going on in the last few months, because we get so many of those. You're very much invited to stay connected there. And having said that, I also love to introduce us. So maybe not all of you know already the climate choice, what we are doing. I'm Lara, one of the co-founders. Yasha, our founder and CEO, is joining later as well. And what we are doing is we are really following the mission to decarbonize supply chains and empower every single company to go successfully through that transition towards net zero. And we do that mainly with our climate intelligence platform, where we help companies to really engage with their suppliers, use data to find out how climate mature they are, and empower them to take the next steps to really decrease emissions together. And that shall be enough introduction from my side. I have a quick survey for you before I invite my two colleagues and experts here on stage. So you can share a little bit more about yourself. And as always, I would need support from the background. So you should see soon a small survey popping up on your screen. If I see it, you should see it as well. So there are two questions. The first one is, from which role are you joining our webinar today? And you are working on sustainability procurement, but maybe today, like, what is the role from which you look at the CSDDD? Is it as a sustainability manager from procurement? Is it not really the role in one specific job that's relevant, but you are like a supplier mainly, or a buyer, or you're just interested in the topic? And then you have a second question, which is, what's actually your attitude towards CSDDD? If you have been following social media, it's quite fair to say that there's a big range of different opinions around that. So that's all perfect, and it's anonymous, so you can just share. You don't really have an opinion, so I don't know. Or it's a little bit getting on your nerves because there's so much discussion about it. Or you really don't know what all these letters stand for, so that is also fair. Or it's really important for you, but you feel that's a lost ship, so to say. And last option, I'm just pro. So as I was able to read through, I would say we can close the survey and then share the result with everyone. It worked perfectly. So half of you are joining here today in the role as a sustainability manager and are therefore interested. Also quite an amount of procurement leaders with 8%, and general managers also 8%. And 26% are just interested in the topic, which is also awesome. And then what's your opinion about the European supply chain law? Most of you, 56%, said it's important, but it's lost. I think for this week, that's definitely fair to say, but let's see what our expert Yvonne is saying to that. So I would invite you on stage, and also for a moment, Yasha to join both of you. Hello, Yvonne. How are you feeling when you see most people today, at least, joining here supported, but they feel everything around CSDDD is maybe not that
yeah,
fair to look
quite,
at?
Desperate, let's say, yeah. I also struggle a little bit with this. Of course, I'm always an optimist, that I always try to see the good thing, and that it's still not over, and we still have the discussions, and it's the final decision is not there yet, so we can all fight for this. But yeah, I am also quite upset about the development of this CSDDD and how it came, because we all thought it's already done now, and we have it, and it will be in place quite soon. But anyway, we will talk about it.
Yeah, and I think that's really also our intention. I think it has shifted a little bit from informing what's now new with the European supply chain law towards, okay, there's so much misinformation and like maybe a little bit myth or like arguments that feel maybe not so valid, or not even maybe, but not valid. So that's really our intention today, to dive a little bit deeper into. And then also, Yasha, on the other hand, we really wanted to also highlight that a lot of companies doing already a lot beside all the regulation that is kind of forcing companies to do so. So maybe what's your perspective? Do you think, because half of the people already said they are pro it, can you confirm that a lot of people are doing something, or what is like your opinion in that area?
Yes, hi everyone, really happy to be here today. Yeah, I think like first of all, I feel with you if you say you're lost, right? There's so many acronyms and so many details to go through and everything. It really seems complicated at first, but then a lot of companies are getting their grasp on topics and doing a lot. I think no matter about the regulations, right? There's so much other reasons to act. Not only, of course, for the purpose of this, for more sustainable economy, but also because there's so many other stakeholders like banks and investors looking at this kind of information. So the largest companies, I think, are on the way already, and they will also want to see this in their supply chain. And I think, yeah, that's my perspective. But of course, also following all the discussion around this, and yeah, interested to see what comes out in the next months.
Yeah, and I think that gives a perfect introduction for at least the next 50 minutes only now. We have two people who are going to share a lot, I guess. So I'm going to make it short on my side. Yvonne really going to bring us all the foundation and like what has been maybe the development so far to get us all on the same page. You're always welcome to share more in the chat, as said. We're going to look at that and also bring it later to the discussion. And then Yasha also going to bring some practical examples and yeah, stories how companies are already working on sustainable procurement. Having said that, the stage would be yours, Yvonne.
Okay.
If you like, you can start sharing. And then I'm going to listen also in the background and follow the chat.
Okay, great. And once again, thank you very much for your invitation that I can speak to you again and to your audience. So it's always a big, big pleasure. And I'm happy that so many people are still interested in this topic. I'm a bit worried because there are many sustainability managers here who might already maybe know quite much about the legislation and not so many procurement people, because I will dive a bit deeper than also in the procurement function and what you can do there. But I see and I experience that it's always a good information also for the sustainability managers to know how to talk to their procurement departments, yeah, because they maybe do not all know what is all about it and what processes are there and where they can take action. So I hope that this will meet what you're looking for, dear audience. So if there's any question, as we said, please ask me afterwards. A few words about JARO in case you don't know us yet. We are a non-profit organization. We are based in Berlin. We have currently 55 members. So if you want, you can join us. So we have personal members, we have corporate members, we have some associations who are connected with us and who join us. So it's really a nice group of all really motivated people who want to bring certain topics, especially sustainable procurement, forward. And we always define together what are the next topics that we are working on. So last year, we had a very strong focus, for example, on sustainable procurement indicators that are context-based. So that was something that we made along the ESRS standards from the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive. And yeah, that's something what will be published in spring. And of course, we also have a scientific advisory board that helps us from different perspectives to give us some inspiration or to challenge us a little bit here and there. So this is really also a very nice exchange and collaboration that we are having there. And what we have for some time already is our JARO Academy, where we have 40 modules all around sustainable procurement. So this might be also something that is interesting for you because you can use it for your own procurement department, but also for your suppliers to develop them and to have a documentation about this development and this engagement, what you're doing then. So our focus at JARO is very strong on awareness creating, so that we have really awareness creation where we have a lot of speaking events, where we have a lot of presentations, workshops, but also publications that you find on our website as well. As soon as we see that the people are ready and open to discuss about this more in detail and to know now how they can do it, but not if they should do it, then we also can start and support with our capacity building. So that's what I said with this JARO Academy. We also have podcasts, what is actually only in German, and the publications that we are having to explain things, how they can be done. And also with our JARO services, we also have the possibility to support corporates in implementing sustainable procurement practices. So that's also another point that we are doing, so that we then really do it together with the company to show them what are the next steps, where you should focus on, and how can you integrate it in procurement, and how you can do the change management for this, and so on. I already explained about the academy that we are having. I said it's 40 modules. This is a very modular training, official accredited also by the ZFU. That's an organization here in Germany for distance learning. And all these 40 modules, so each of this square or each of these boxes here is one module, and they can all be booked separately, or you can also book a complete curricula. So what is a curricula? A curricula is a kind of learning path where you always have 50 modules, and then you can choose based on the role that you are having in the company. So if you're a CSR manager, for example, you should book track A. If you are a buyer, then maybe also track A. If you're in a leading position, or maybe you want to dive deeper in each category, then you choose track B. Or if you have your focus on supplier management, then you book track C. But as you like, you can also book the entire thing. We also have corporate licenses because we developed the entire training also in SCORM files, so we can also integrate it in your existing LMS systems and learning management systems, what is also possible. So just talk to us in case you're interested. And the fine thing is that if you make a certification afterwards, you even get 6 ECTS and have the official certification as a certified sustainable procurement professional if you do this. We have several publications, I already said. I put just some here in case you might be interested, as we have quite many people from Germany, I think. Maybe these publications in German are also interesting. Because this one book on the left side, CSR and Beschaffung, this is something what is on the way, what will be published now in spring, and you can already pre-order this. It's our latest publication. The others that were just one chapter that we wrote in this, but can be also is also from the one thing is from Springer, the other one from the from this medizinischen Fachverlag. I don't know how you call it in English now. Medical. Anyway, in case this is interesting, you can dive deeper. You have the links there. And that's so far from our side. Yeah, if you are interested, just check on our website. On LinkedIn, we have a profile. You can follow us there, and then we can also go in a deeper discussion in case you have more questions about that. And now let's dive a bit deeper, or let's have a look at this corporate due diligence legislation that we are having. I mean, when we follow the discussion, and what we always hear in nearly each discussions, especially with politicians, yeah, and if they say, yeah, we don't need this law because, and so on, then what they always say, or very often say, or what companies also very often say is, why should the companies now look after the human rights and after these due diligence obligations if even the governments can't do it, yeah? And why they put it over to the corporates. And that's always when I show this slide, or when I refer to this slide, when I refer to the UN guiding principles on businesses and human rights, yeah, because this was already established in 2011. And here you see very clear the 3 pillars on which it is founded, yeah. So you have the first pillar is, of course, the state duty to protect the human rights. So that means that they have to do the right regulation, that they have to ensure that in their country everything goes well, and that their corporates, their economy is following these rules. The second one is that the companies, the corporates, that they have the responsibility to respect the human rights. So of course, companies have to do their part, yeah, and they also have to get compliant with that, yeah. And the third column is then, of course, always this this guarantee for the affected peoples, for the victims, that they get access to remedy, yeah, in case that their human rights have been abused. And this is something what is very often forgotten, that for whom are we doing this? We are doing this for the most for the weakest people in our supply chains, yeah, for those who can't defend themselves more normally. And for them, it should be more fair, and the situation should improve. And that's why we are doing all this. So that's something just what I want to make clear. And actually, these UN guiding principles, all the nations agreed on that. That was all developed together with businesses, with governments, with NGOs. And they agreed on this, the governments. They said, okay, we do it, we are committed. And they all had to derive national action plans on that. So how they want to implement it in their country, and to ensure that in their country, these mechanisms are working, yeah, and that these principles have been followed, yeah. And what Germany did was that they published this national action plan in 2016. Maybe you all know this already. I don't know. Just let me know afterwards if I should go a bit further already. But in this national action plan, they refer to this UN guiding principles, and they explained these 5 core principles, what it's all about, and what corporates have to do. Yeah, and that was these 5 principles here. So you have to have this policy statement. You have to have a process, a risk management to identify your human rights impacts that you might have. And in the 3rd step, you have to identify or define the measures that you want to do, where you want to take action, how you want to prevent these negative effects. And of course, you have to review if these measures are working, yeah, if they are effective. And in the 4th step, of course, you have to report if you are successful. Yeah, what came out of all this, of your engagement? What have you done? And what is the result? Did it have any effect or not? And if not, then don't hide it. Yeah, don't put it aside and say only everything is perfect and everything what we have done is really successful, because nobody will believe you this, because we all know that this is very challenging, this topic, and nobody expects perfection. Yeah. This is also something very important, because we also hear very often outside that people say, or that they try to make people scared and telling, yeah, and then you have to guarantee for each screw in your product, in each step of your supply chain, if with every single supplier, even if it's only your plumber or your whatever catering supplier, where you order a pizza once a month or something. Yeah. So this is not true. Yeah. It's all about really what is relevant, and you don't have to guarantee for everybody, and you don't have the obligation really to guarantee that every single human right is fulfilled, because you can't influence everybody in your supply chain. But you can't hide away from this any longer, and you have to show, yes, I know there are risks, and this is how I try to fix it. This is how I try to avoid it. And this is my part of action, what I'm doing. And of course, if you're a bigger company and if you have a higher influence on this, because you have a bigger market share, whatever, then of course the expectation is quite higher. And if you are a smaller company, then of course they know that they can't ask you for too many things. They will see what is really relevant, what can you do, what is really realistic to do, where you could succeed. And of course, there are quite many ways, what I explain later again, what you can do, yeah, to do your part and to give your best. And at the end, in this reporting, as I said, you have to be authentic, and then you have to implement also this grievance mechanism. That's something what was very often forgotten, especially when they made this kind of survey and evaluation within these companies who should be affected, that they saw that this is very often forgotten. And but nowadays, I think most of the companies have already implemented this. It's really that within your supply chain, also for NGOs, that there's a possibility where they can make a complaint, where they can show you, look, something is not working in your supply chain, and so that you can take action, that you can avoid it, prevent it, and so on. And that you don't hear it from the news. Yeah. So I always say it's something good, because you know it then early enough to react, and that you don't hear it just with big headlines in the news. You find a lot of information about the German Supply Chain Act, even especially if you look for something English speaking on this website here from this BMAS, from the ministry. They had a small publication where the most important things are summarized, but you also find the original text, of course, of the law. Actually, it has been passed already in 2021. And it's for companies who have their head office, their principal place of business, administrative headquarters, and so on here in Germany. And it started already last year. So then it was effective for those companies with at least 3,000 employees. And now by this year, by 2024, it's already effective for those people, for those companies who have at least 1,000 employees. Yeah, so that's why there are quite some more. I think it's like 4,000, 5,000 corporates who are affected from this. And there will be really, that's true, more companies affected by the European Supply Chain Act. But we are always, we discussed it even in the past, that we don't like at all that there's any number displayed there of employees of corporate sizes, because the illusion is, or that the illusion that was in many companies is that we are smaller, we are not affected, so we don't have to care about this. But we all know that those who are affected, of course, will put it down in their supply chain. They will reach out and ask for certain questions and want to have certain information because they have to report about it. So then suddenly now many small and medium-sized companies see that they get these assessment questionnaires, whatever, yeah, that they have been challenged by many buyers, many clients, that they should publish what they are doing, and they are sometimes not prepared for that. So that's why I also say here, even if you're smaller, just think of this, that you have clients who are bigger, who will fall under this. So you should anyway prepare, yeah, no matter what now even happens with the European Supply Chain Act, yeah. But even now, even for the German one, we see the effect that it's coming down the supply chain, and that the people are interested in this. And that's what we also saw in our study from JARO, what we did and what we published also last year, that we see that the biggest motivation, the biggest driver for sustainable procurement implementation or for sustainable procurement practices is the demand of the client. It's not the law itself anymore, it's on the second or third place, but the main driver is really the demand of the client. So that shows again how powerful procurement actually is. So if you have your demand, if you want that your suppliers are more sustainable, then you need to communicate this. But you also should not only push it down, you have to do it in a very fair way, in an interactive way, what I will explain a bit later again. And what the law is also not doing, you don't, what I already explained, you don't have to guarantee, yeah, you don't have a duty to succeed. You have just a so-called duty of endeavor. So you have to show that you are really engaged, that you are honest, that you have identified your risks. You have to show that you are trying your best, that you took your measures to prevent some risks that you identified, or the most important risk that you identified. And this is something what you have to show. And for this, they will check, yeah, if you are following the law or not. But you don't have to guarantee this. Yeah, it's only about if it's in your own business, yeah, with your own people, of course, what also some people forget. Yeah, it's not only about the supply chain, it's also about your own employees that you are having, that you don't abuse their human rights. Yeah, that's also something. And there, of course, you have to guarantee, because here you have 100% power on that. To check a bit deeper what is now exactly written in the Supply Chain Act of Germany, you have here the 9 core obligations, and you see that this is actually exactly repeating this, what is written in the guiding principles from the United Nations. You see you have to establish this risk management, you have a designated person, of course, that's something organizational that has to look after this. You have to make a risk analysis, you have to issue a policy statement, you have to download preventive measures, and all of this, what is written here, you see actually this is all belonging to these 5 core elements that we were talking about before. Yeah. What is a big difference to the European Supply Chain Act is, for example, this part of the supply chain which is affected, because in the German Supply Chain Act, they say now that it's actually your own area of business, as I just explained, and your direct suppliers. So those suppliers where you have direct business relation, yeah, you have a contract with, and you have really direct business. And those who are the suppliers of your suppliers, you have to include only if you have substantial, I think you call it in English, if you have know-how, if you have the knowledge that something is wrong there in their supply chain, yeah. And this is something where I say, okay, you also can't hide away, because if there have been already headlines in the news, any papers, any studies that were published and that are officially available here, and that you can download from internet somewhere, then you can't say, okay, I didn't know this. Yeah, so you have to be serious with your investigations, with your risk analysis, that you don't hide away from those where you know, for special industries, for example, that they are high risk industries. So then you should look anyway deeper in your supply chain, yeah, like textile industry, or if you think of the food industry and all these kind of things, yeah. So that are the most important part about this. And what I like very much, and what we also fought for a while was that in this law, it's not only written about these paragraphs and what you have to do, and that it's like a human rights officer that you have to establish or something like this. And that's what was standing there even in the beginning. But what we said and what we contributed was really that we said, look, those people who have to do it at the end, if you really want to bring it down to the supply chain, if you really want to make it effective, then you have to address it to procurement people, to procurement professionals. And as we have many sustainability managers here today, and not only procurement people, I can only highly recommend to talk very closely and to get a really good relationship with your procurement department. And I know sometimes it might be a bit difficult because maybe they didn't really understand your job so far, and they think, that are those people who write the report, and I don't have to do anything because they are the ones who are responsible. But you should work hand in hand with them, because we also see the other way that we work with procurement organizations. And when we make with them a kind of stakeholder analysis, first of all, an internal stakeholder analysis, then they often forget the CSR manager. And then they think, why should I talk to them? They only write the report, and they don't see how much know-how you already have in this topic, and how you can help them, and how you can support them, and how they benefit from you. So that's why I always say, just get a good relation, because this law actually shows very clear that you have to include your purchasing department. Yeah, even these results of the risk analysis, that you need sustainable procurement strategies and purchasing practices. So not only write it on the paper in a nice theoretical approach and say what are your targets, but also implement sustainable procurement practices. And then, of course, what everybody already does normally with a code of conduct or something is that you pay a lot of attention, that you communicate your expectations when you select your suppliers. But it's not enough, because you can't only push it down and let them sign any contract clause that is really not fair and that is really just giving away all your responsibility to your supplier. This is not allowed and also not enough. What is very important is, and I'm happy that this is also integrated, that was not only mentioned, that you should also train and develop your buyers, your procurement team, because very often they are overwhelmed, let's say. They are really challenged because they never learned about sustainability theories or practices or whatever, because they were always drilled, let's say, for savings and for the commercial aspects, but not so much about sustainability. It's only the younger generation now who got it at school or at university and who is more interested in that, and some older ones who really have this intrinsic motivation for that. So this is something what you should focus on to really make them capable to fulfill these expectations. And the same is also for your suppliers, yeah, that you have a good supplier management, so that you can take them with you and that they are able to realize your expectations and that they are able to do something, because most often they are really not capable so far. I mean, if these are bigger suppliers that you're having, of course, they will also have their trainings and their experiences already, but many small ones don't have it. And now, I think it's the last slide. No, it's one more. Just some details about the last draft that we saw of this corporate sustainability due diligence directive. That's the secret behind CSDDD. What is the abbreviation? And you all know maybe that there was this agreement in December that was published. On this slide is also made. And the adoption actually has been planned, or is planned for April. We all don't know now if it's coming or not. And I wouldn't be that pessimistic, because I hear from many sources that they are very optimistic that this will be coming, that there will be no way back anymore. Let's see, I hope so. I'm a big fan of this. What is the objective? It's actually to anchor these human rights and environmental aspects in business activities and also in corporate governance. So that means that really the top management is also responsible for it. That's why quite many are also very nervous, let's say, and that they want to promote this action, yeah, that really something has been done now, because the reporting, this CSRD is anyway already in place, yeah. This was already coming in place this year. So you anyway, even if this CSDDD is coming or not, you have the report also about your supply chain, what you're going to do there, yeah. What did you identify? What risks do you have? You anyway have to report all this about your engagement, what you're doing in this CSRD. this CSDDD shows you just how you can do it, yeah, and helps you, it gives you the right kind of framework actually to show you what are the most important topics and how you should do it, and gives you a kind of structure. Actually, it makes it more easier for you that you can fulfill the expectations of the CSRD. So this is important to know, because some people think, yeah, if this is gone, then I don't have to do anything anymore. No, you still have to do it, because you still have the CSRD, and this is in place, and this is, yeah, is not is not going away. The application area is here really like it was mentioned in the UN guiding principles. It's for companies, corporates that are having more than 500 employees or more than 150 million global turnover. Yeah, that's some part. For non-EU companies, they also have a regulation there. It's a bit higher. These non-EU companies have to have a net turnover of more than 300 million in the EU. And there are some corporates who have to report even if they are smaller, even if they have just more than 250 employees and more than 40 million of turnover, if they have at least 20 million in high risk sectors. So what I already said before, textiles, agriculture, yeah, or minerals, metal production, for example. Also, this construction was still discussed. So I'm not sure what is coming now out there in the final version. But for those high risk sectors, it's a bit stricter on this field. And this is also something what is already known from the CSRD, because they are working even on sector specific standards to fulfill the reporting requirements of the CSRD. So it's just logic that this will be also applicated here. Just some selected contents. This is important for you again. Also here, a big difference. As I said before, it's not only for the direct suppliers that you're having, it's for your entire upstream value chain that they said that you have a responsibility, but also here, risk-based. Yeah, so of course they check how big are you, how much influence do you have, how realistic is it that you can change something there. Yeah, but you can't just say, okay, I don't look at all in my supply chain. So this is one of the big differences, even though I already explained before that in the German legislation, you also have this. If this is a high risk area, if you know that there are some issues, then you also need to look deeper down in your supply chain. Yeah, so depends on in which area you are active, if this is now a change for you, or if this was anyway already for you or something that was applicable. And what is there is the adoption of a climate plan. This is very important, where Yasha will say something more detailed afterwards when I finished here. So you have to show how your business model is in line with the Paris Agreement, with the 1.5 targets for the global warming, because this CSRD is not telling you how you can do it. It's just saying that you have to make a plan. But here in the CSDDD, actually, you have to show how you want to do it. Yeah. So this is you have to really show this transition plan that you are having. Yeah, that you want to do and how you want to integrate it or implement it. So this is very important. That's why the climate choice is very deep into this to help you with this, with their working groups that they have. You have the civil liability, so that it's easier for victims to claim their rights. And you have sanctions, of course, if you don't follow this directive, that you have to face fines even up to 5% of your global net turnover. And that's also something that is necessary, because we even saw in the German law that we had really some corporates who said that they are making a really business case and say, do I invest this in the change, in the change of our, or in the adoption of our business model? I know it's expensive to change my processes and to train my people, or do I take the risk and pay this fee, this fine? Yeah. What is quite shocking for us, where we think, my goodness, okay, then we don't have to talk about sustainability anymore with such a company. Yeah, if they calculate like that. The next steps now that follows, as we know, we have still these negotiations behind the doors. We have to see what's coming out and how the vote will be like. It was actually planned that that is all completed by April. As you know, the elections of the EU Parliament is coming up. So we hope that this is still on the way and this would still come. If it's coming, of course, there might be some changes now until then. If it's coming, then it will be into force from 2026. And for the German Supply Chain Act, this will mean that this has to be adapted. This has to be yeah, there have to be some changes then so that it's in line with the EU regulation. And this is already mentioned also in the German Supply Chain Act, yeah, that there will be a kind of review, a re-evaluation by 2026. So far, so good. This is also something, nothing new, due diligence regulations. Yeah, we don't have it only in Germany, what some people say. We also have it in other countries, for example, in France or also in Norway. Also some other, lots of countries outside of the EU already have this in place, as they all have to fulfill, as I explained in the beginning, these expectations of the UN guiding principles where they all agreed. So they all have to do it. There's no discussion about this. And you see that quite many other countries are on the way, that the political process already started, like in Spain or in Finland or whatever. And some more where this is still in the discussion with especially civil society to take action and to bring this forward. And this CSDDD would be a big advantage for everybody, because then it's really a European level playing field. Yeah, it's not that each country has its own solution. Of course, there might be some changes, some minor changes then at the end, but they are all based on this European regulation. Yeah, so it's much easier for each company to follow these obligations then. Yeah. And all those in Germany even have a big advantage also in France or in Norway, because they already did their homework, if they're already under this law, if they are already affected. Yeah, they have a big advantage, competition advantage, what they can use now, because they can say, look, I'm already having this, I'm already compliant, while all the others still have to do their work. So that's also something what people are not talking so often about it. And if you want to see how these laws that are already there, how you can compare them and what content they have and all of this, there's a nice publication here where you can find more details, and then you can download this. It's also very interesting, I think. So, and now really the final one. Oh God, Yasha, do I have some time? Oh God, I don't have so much time, huh? As we don't have so many buyers here, I just give you the slides all in one. It's important to get the go from your management. It's important to have to know your stakeholders who can help you, who can support you, who you should inform, who is affected. You need to define your goals, clear goals with indicators, so that you can also see if all the measures, all the engagement, what you're doing, if this is really effective. As I said in the beginning, you must think of all these procurement processes, not only of the contract part that your supplier has to sign a code of conduct. You have to reflect your own demand. You have to reflect how is your strategy in procurement, your category strategy, for example, or how you do your supplier management, how you have to develop your suppliers, how you integrate it in your operational procurement practices, yeah, so that it's really coming to life, yeah. So this is all things that you have to think of, and also consider what communication measures you have to do. And then, of course, you need an active involvement with your suppliers. As we said before, it has to be fair. It has to be on eye-to-eye level. You have to support them with training, with communication, with maybe workshops that you're doing together, webinars you're doing for your suppliers, and so on and so on. And in the end, of course, success control to see if this is all effective, or if you have to change anything, if you have to improve something, if you can have some higher targets because you achieved them faster than you thought, and to see also if the implementation of the grievance mechanism is in place, and so on. Yeah, I'm just doing this very quickly. You can read it all afterwards. Lara is making a summary out of this. If anybody wants to dive deeper, just download our brochure, and then everything is there. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Yvonne.
Sorry, I needed already, more time.
No, all good. I already saw a lot of comments in the chat, some of them applauding and saying a great presentation. So maybe that's also the invitation. You can put more questions. And Yvonne, if you like, you can explore them in the chat and also comment. And on the other hand, I would transition over to Yasha, because I think these questions came up already also in the chat. How is it practicable, doable for companies? How can they really track their supply chain? What can also smaller companies do? And what is now actually the overall guidance? And Yvonne, you already mentioned the climate transition plan. So you have a guidance there anyway already, even the European supply chain law is not yet there. So Yasha, maybe you can tell us what's going on practically. How do companies right now prepare? And what can you share about learnings in that field?
Yes, thank you very much, Lara. And yeah, really happy to give a little bit of insights. So as Lara said, we're a company that provides, first of all, software, but also, we do webinars, best practice sharing, mainly focused on scope 3, so supply chain emissions. And one of these initiatives is actually a learning group and a blended learning group that we host. We hosted the first time in 2023, which is called Scope 3 Action Group, and we're about to start the new version of it. And today I want to just share some insights from what we have learned, because it's about building these best practices. There's not the silver bullet for this, but it's really a lot about exchanging, learning from each other and developing these practices. And today, I want to go into kind of like the typical questions that we typically hear and that are typically part of not only Scope 3, so the climate focused emission reduction activities of companies, but also in general in sustainable procurement practices. And these are typically in the procurement team, also in the sustainability team. What data do we need to exactly collect? How do we collect the data? How do we, then work with the data, segment our suppliers? How do we get buy-in from other departments? How do we secure resources? How do we deal with missing data? How do we ensure the development and all, documentation purposes and risk purposes, etc., that the legislations also require? So, these are the questions that we've addressed over the past, or some of the questions that we addressed over the past months with a group of companies. Below you can see some of the participants, but there were even more in this group. And what we've done basically is kind of like going through 3 steps. As mentioned, it's very climate focused, so we first start off with building an understanding of what is climate data. Then we started to understand also the existing supplier structure, and then we derive strategies for decarbonization. And so one of the first insights, or I think like that you can probably have in your own company, is that of course various stakeholders are involved in the whole process. So it's not only about the typical, also the participants in our team. And today in this webinar, right, we've seen there's procurement, there's sustainability, but there's also some general management. I think was in here, and other departments. But here are also other collaboration, which is typically needed, and alignment in the organization is typically needed with product teams, because they may be working on bringing new low carbon products to the market. Maybe the sales teams, maybe the C-level. It really is an overall transformation challenge, right, with these topics, because we're changing how business is done, and not only in our own company, but in our supply chain as well, or kind of like in the selection of our strategic partners. And there's a lot of alignment needed on kind of like, why do we need to do this? Is this only for maybe compliance reasons, or is this something that is strategic, right? And this is what we see with a lot of companies. They see this, and maybe also going to one of the questions, right, as it's of course seeing this as a cost burden is one way to look at it. The other way to look at it, and that's what the leaders of a lot of companies have kind of like owning this strategy and saying, okay, we want to become the leaders, we want to become the business partners for our customers in a sustainable economy. And this is specifically also the organizations that are really advancing here, and they also start to include more and more these climate, but also other sustainable procurement indicators into their buying decisions, which of course then makes this bottom line relevant for a lot of businesses. And the big challenge here, maybe to come to that, what we learned is also the different understanding, right? Maybe you're a climate expert, you know exactly what is scope 1, 2, 3 emissions, and what are the subcategories and how to calculate it. But this is mostly not the case in other departments. They might be experts in other topics, right? So understanding and giving a same understanding across the organization of why is this relevant was really key. So really about the people involved in this process. In the scope 3 action group, we really focus on chain decarbonization, and we firstly looked at, in terms of building a common understanding also in the group, at reporting standards. And it was already mentioned by Yvonne that the CSRD demands also the supply chain reporting as well, the value chain reporting. And why we're focusing on climate is because it's mostly it's the only standard, right, on which companies must provide a detailed explanation. If they say, oh, climate is not material, then they still need to report on that, how they came to this conclusion. So it makes it kind of like de facto also very, very relevant and almost mandatory for a lot of companies. And as mentioned, right, these standards basically look at on how our external stakeholders understand your company and the plan and the progress on decarbonization. Of course, there's other standards, but in for other topics for the same, but the climate standard looks specifically on decarbonization. So, and this includes scope 3, so the value chain. So what are the measures taking to mitigate the actual potential negative impacts, right? What are risks and opportunities? What is the past, current, and future mitigation efforts to limit global warming to 1.5 degrees? So there's a lot of these topics that are already kind of like defined or being defined currently, right, by standard setters. And I think this was a good place to start off with on kind of like, okay, what does this mean? It actually means that a lot of this data will become available in the future, right? And this sets basically the basis not only for procurement, right, but it's our kind of like angle and perspective, but also for other decisions, right? For decisions for investments and other maybe consumer decisions. So it's really relevant for yeah, kind of like looking from a decision perspective on this. But however, this typically is overwhelming because there's so many, detailed data points. It's very complex. I mean, currently a lot of companies are struggling and working on how do we start to report, right? And if you then say, okay, we want our suppliers to provide the same, it's mostly very hard, right? So because most of the suppliers, as Yvonne mentioned, right, they only starting on their journey. So they don't have data available. They often get questionnaires from a lot of different companies that are all different or have maybe different topics. Often there's no expertise, no roadmap. So it's a big gap, right, in terms of expectations and how the world currently looks. And this is why it's really important to mention, and also putting what Yvonne mentioned around in her presentation, that action is bigger than perfection, right? So simplifying first and getting a first understanding before targeting perfection, excuse me, was for us very, very important. So looking at, okay, how does actually my maturity look like and how does the data availability look like? And these are just some of the topics that we boiled this down to, is the first step, kind of like to get a first understanding for then takes the next step and prioritize what you do, because it can be very overwhelming. If you have hundreds and thousands of companies, you cannot work with everyone. You cannot, maybe you can, maybe you have a very big budget for this, but we see a lot that there needs to be prioritization, needs to be broken down. Big problems are always better, or like at least in our experience, to break them down into smaller chunks and work on this and prioritize this to grapple that. And what we did was in the group, around 1,500 suppliers were engaged by the participants. And here you can also see a little bit on how the structure looks like in a very simple overview, right? So we have a lot of companies that, as mentioned, have no data, no systematic change in process for their own company. But then there's also some kind of like leaders that taking, the action already. They have data available, maybe for also reporting, or because they took it as a strategic initiative. And with that, this really enables in a simple way to structure your supplier base and understand, first of all, what is their impact on your, or maybe also risk, if you will, in sustainable procurement. But here in scope 3, it's the impact on your scope 3 emissions, and what's their maturity. And for that, you can then go deeper and say, okay, either per product or purchasing category, or overall supplier base or specific projects, you can really then identify who can we, you know, leverage, or kind of like how can we work with these groups of suppliers, which makes it more easy, more handable. For example, understanding who can provide you better data, who can you collaborate with for decarbonization, where can you leverage innovative products, you know, for new products in your own company, but also understand, okay, like with which suppliers do I need to work with and need to engage with to really help drive change. And also with that, of course, not every company can do this. So I also recommend to really look at also industry engagements. So there's of course a lot of industry specific information, right? So you don't have to invent the wheel for yeah, you. Let's put it that way. I'll hurry a little bit up. I think like I'd only have 5 minutes left. So just one example from Austria that we took from one of the reports. So for example, they identified critical suppliers with the for example said, okay, here's companies that they are developing first lower carbon footprint steel foundations, but also identified lower carbon copper tables. So you can figure kind of like have a baseline to also really have an impact on decarbonization when you understand who is doing what, and you know, start a dialogue with your suppliers. You will learn something maybe new and then can also act upon it. Then the second or the third part, sorry, we're already the third part, is really what's key, and that was also mentioned by Yvonne. So standardizing processes in supplier management is really, really key. So understanding then if you have information about the supplier base or your suppliers, so how do you really use that information and at what stage, right, to inform decision making, or also in context of, for example, the supply chain due diligence law, how do you, you know, collaborate, and how do you, for example, set up workflows or, you know, specific preventive measures if you identify risks, right? So this is really about a processes and systems to really enable, you know, continuous improvement. And the last part, what we've done is then really get this into a management kind of like overview and buy-in and into a master plan, right? Because, you know, first of all, you need internal process documentation, also strategies, right? But then also you need to get buy-in from maybe people that have a very short expansion span, because they have a lot of stuff on their table, right? And you need to convince them why are we doing this? What are we need to do? How does this look like? What will we achieve with this? What resources do we need? And these are really key things to collaborate across departments. And yeah, last but not least, as mentioned, our next group actually starts in March 2024, and yeah, we're really excited yeah, to work with more companies to really take action on that and really bring the whole space forward, to make it easier, of course, for companies and share more best practices. And with that, I think we have a couple minutes left for discussion, and I would ask Lara and Yvonne to come back. I hope I was not too fast. Not getting into.
Yeah, as promised, I think it's always a very exciting hour, and we could easily spend 2 hours in each of the webinars, but then also it's challenging to get that all in our working life, I would say. So first of all, from my side, thanks a lot, Yvonne and Yasha, yeah, bringing us so much information about the whole topic, sustainability procurement. I think Yvonne was already really active answering some questions. Maybe, Yvonne, I wouldn't force a question on you. Is there something that sticked out for you from the questions, or something you want to give as a comment from what you have been seeing in the chat?
There were quite many things. The obvious arguments that we always hear, or the obvious points that we hear, that it's a burden for SMEs. So I just can repeat, the SMEs are not really affected now by the law, so they don't have to do any reporting in that way. They only have to do the reporting in the CSRD area, and this is for them even later. So they have much more time for that. And there are also quite many tools that help you to do your report. And all what they see now, what is overwhelming the SMEs now is actually what I said, that they get all these assessment questionnaires, yeah, from the big ones, because they didn't do their homework. And even the German authority, this BAFA, they even made a handout for that, yeah, and showing them, explaining them, you don't have to do that. It's not your job to do that. You can do it. And of course, it's an advantage for you, and you want to act in the sense that you don't want to lose your client, for sure. But it's not right that the big ones push it so much down to the small ones, and that they ask sometimes in contracts that you have to guarantee. It's not allowed, and you can complain about that. Yeah, you can make it, tell it to this BAFA, for example, and show that it's not correct like this. But we always say, okay, understand the benefits of it, what you have out of this, because you don't only do it for this one client. If you once do your homework and you once have these points, then you know this is also relevant for many other clients. And what else came up was, yeah, this that suppliers might be tired of this, yeah, that you don't reach them, that you can't convince them. This is very often because they just have this one-way direction. Yeah, you just go down and say, I want to have from you this or that. Yeah, but it's so important to have a dialogue with your suppliers. You have to think of a new supplier relationship. Yeah, you have to understand that you are only as good as your suppliers are. So if they don't follow you, if they don't listen to you because they don't trust you, maybe because of what you have done in the past or how you have treated them in the past, yeah, then they will also not follow you. Then it's hard to get them on board. So you have to show them, when you reach out, also the benefits of this. What do they have out of this? They can also save money. They are more attractive as employers. They find maybe new business models. They have the data for other clients, as I mentioned before, and so on and so on. Yeah. And then to get really interactive with them, make a supplier day, for example, to show them what it is all about, to give them the explanation, to make maybe some workshops, to get their feedback, to even show and give them the stage, those suppliers who really were engaged, who really already achieved something, who are really your top players, yeah. Give them the stage and give them this appreciation for that, yeah, for their engagement, so that the others are motivated. Or he could do it, this company can do it, and I also want to do it, and I also want to be on stage next time. It's really working. We did it with so many corporate.
Totally.
Yeah,
I can just underline that. No,
yeah.
that's a really, really good one. So I hear this carrot and stick maybe, or like, yeah, rather really like, just don't focus only on the stick, bring the carrot in and make it a discussion and like a collaboration. And that's totally what we see. Like you have always these top performers who are then like super willing and write back and say like,
Yeah.
hey, I can share more. And that's what we are doing. It's so good you ask because that's what we totally position in the market. And it's good you see it. Yeah, maybe Yasha, on your side, there were also a lot of questions of like, yeah, how can we really use that data? Is that reliable? What about yeah, public data and so on? I think Yvonne already mentioned, as a supplier, you can already prepare. If you at least publish it, then you know you can also provide it for others. Maybe you don't have to put it in all these surveys. What are your maybe tips here? How to become transparent and with going around that need of filling out all the surveys? How can a small supplier maybe or a smaller company prepare so that they are not ending up in all these surveys?
Yeah, I think like one very, like you made a very good point, and I also think you're referring to Anton's question or comment that there will be a lot of data points available, and there needs to be a secure way and not one platform. Of course, right? That's the main point of all the CSRD. There's like audited information available for the companies, right? It needs to be audited. It will become, as a financial kind of like financial data, right? It will bring up the sustainability and climate data to financial quality. And this also means the future, right, will go much more into, okay, what do you have publicly available? And you will be screened and rated and scored even without, having questionnaires. So of course, being proactive is always better, and preparing from a business perspective, specifically. I mean, we are also developing tools to automatically get data out of CSR reports, and we don't even need to talk to the suppliers, because a lot just simply don't answer any more questionnaires, and that's fair enough. So the main point that I want to say is, like, the world is becoming more transparent, and I think like preparing for that is good on your business. It's good for the economy. It's good for the world, and for making sustainable process towards a sustainable economy. And I don't think this will be much more about, compliance. It will be much more and more driven towards business decisions and revenue relevance. And I think it's a duty of every managing director to make sure to be prepared for the future. And I think I think that's maybe hopefully another reason to really take the lead there.
Okay, so what I take out of that is like, yeah, your sustainability data point is the foundation for other people to work with you or to take business decisions in relationship to you. And then maybe, just being prepared to have those data points help you to go into the future, right? And potentially not just staying with the data, but really just use it as foundation for collaboration, for communication, and for your own transformation as well, right? That's what Yvonne brought out so much. I think that's what I hear a lot, right? It starts always with yourself, and it's not just asking your suppliers. It's
Exactly.
really understanding how can you transform, and then opportunities build up together for you and your suppliers. Thanks a lot for everyone in the audience staying 5 minutes longer. As said, we could end up another hour. Please reach out to Yvonne. You find her on LinkedIn for any more expertise. If you want to do trainings with your suppliers, if you want to do trainings with your procurement team. And we have a few more slots open in our Scope 3 action group. As said, it's kicking off next month. And otherwise, we invite you also to the next choice event, which is going to be about CBAM. Also happening next month. So that was also a question. We're going to look into that. And we are happy to stay connected and wish you a wonderful afternoon, I would say. Thank you so much for taking time.
Thank you. And
Have a good
all the best
pleasure
for
to
you
have
all.
you. Yeah.